Chapter 30. 2.33 Small Star, Departure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hospital. He Shui finally finished packing his things. Normally things like this were done by servants, but the only one left to serve him in this moment is his lawyer, He Yu. He tasked him to leave the room to wait for Wan Lenya and officialize their divorce papers. He had done his part and signed all that needed to be signed, even leaving his own seal to show his full agreement to the separation. Host, are you really leaving the country? Just for a while. With my fingers suddenly getting healed, will cause commotion. At the same time, I want to look for my husband first. EXE, observe the protagonist Gong and protagonist show for me. Record their every single movements. Host, I understand. He Shui left his former hospital room, leaving a last glance in that empty room. With a mischievous smile on the corner of his lips, he left a bag of sweets by the corner of the room for those little children who love to visit his room to scourge for snacks. Walking away, he left the hospital and waited outside the hospital building for his chauffeur to come pick him up. This is to have the chauffeur send him to the airport for his afternoon flight. He Shui decided to leave the country today. At the bench just outside the hospital, He Shui waited. With his celestial blue eyes covered behind his sunglasses and hair returned to original pitch black, no one will notice his former identity as Wu Shui unless one knew him so well. Currently playing with his phone, he noticed that when his car arrived, at the same time he saw the two men he didn't want to see the most before he leaving the place. One man in an almost complete white formal suit appeared with his silvery hair and orbs signifying the coldness of ice. An icy king-like aura surrounds him, adding his cold atmosphere that can be felt just by seeing him. Meanwhile, the other man beside him wore a black and gray matching attire with his pure obsidian hair and eyes showing a gallant posture and arrogance in his presence. These two are Wan Lenya, whose name means the cold night, and Yu Wuya, the silent moon. He Shui's eyes widened as if to show his surprise, but thanks to the glasses he was wearing no one was able to see his stunned expression. The reason he was shocked is not because the pair is extremely handsome, but for some other reason only he could understand. He Shui stared at Wan Lenya. This is he. Silently murmured as he looked and observed Wan Lenya even more closely than he is supposed to be. Feeling the erratically beating of his heart and the familiarity that person always made him sense, He Shui knew that he found him. The decision to forget the man after leaving the first world had failed. Though after entering this second world He Shui had made a clear cut in his heart to never expect that he would be able to meet this man for the second time. After all, he thought that this man is just an original character of that first world. Seeing him now in this world gave him mixed feelings of happiness, confusion, anger, disbelief and yearning. This is the man he gave his whole heart. He would never mistake him for someone else. This is his husband. Wang Tian, of that world. He Shui knew it was him, but remembering this man's agreement to their divorce, resentment fills his heart. In the end he decided to still leave the country. A punishment must be given, whether his actions is intentional or not. As the two passed by each other, He Shui could only whisper playful to the man's ears, "We shall see each other again." In the future, he walked side by side in the opposite direction as he was leaving the place. Walking towards the road where he is about to be escorted by his chauffeur. His teasing voice lingers unexpectedly in the ears of that cold-faced man. Only Wan Lenya turned his head to follow the departing figure of He Shui. His silvery irises unavoidably keep a note on that unknown figure. That man's mischievous voice had a hint of allure which was left lingering in his ears as if he was bewitched by a devil. Wan Lenya felt his soul trembles while his heart didn't just skip a beat but started beating uncontrollably. A voice was telling him from his mind, "You mustn't let him escape. Capture him before he is completely gone." But before he could chase after that fleeing figure, Yu Wuya's voice brought him back to reality. "What are you looking for? Let's go. Shui sent me a message saying that the lawyer will meet us first while the doctor checked on his fingers." said Yu Wuya while reading the reply sent to him by He Shui before he got to the hospital. The moment that fading figure completely disappeared from his line of sight, Wan Lenya felt something stabbed his heart and unconsciously grabbed his chest with a frown tainting his icy eyes with bewilderedness. Wan Lenya felt that something that is supposed to be his, escaped from his clutches making him feel empty within. His heartbeat is out of control making him feel perplexed and uneasy. Unable to understand his heart he averted his eyes purposely, blinding his own heart and still followed Yu Wuya towards the hospital. Wonderland's lawyer and CEO, He Yu, welcomed them by the lobby that was currently empty except for his figure. On his arms is a black leather-covered folder while silently waiting for their arrival. He elegantly passed his time by enjoying his morning coffee. Once He Yu had spotted the anticipated pair, this lawyer didn't even stand up in greeting and only gestured for the two to take the seat at the opposite side where he was seated. He introduced himself respectfully in a professional manner, "I am Master Shui's exclusive lawyer, He Yu. Could I speak with Sir Wan Lenya?" said He Yu. Will look at the two, mostly at Wan Lenya. Wan Lenya sat before He Yu while Yu Wuya remained standing. He wanted wait for their conversation to finish. The black folder on He Yu's arms was opened as he presented it in front of Wan Lenya. The documents were titled Divorce Agreement with Wu Shui's signature signed at the lower right of the paper with his fingerprint stamped on it as well as his seal. He Yu started the explanation of the contents of the documents. The contents of the divorce agreement as follows. The marriage relationship of Sire Wu Shui and Sir Wan Lenya will be immediately dissolved as soon as the signature and thumbprints of both parties are completed at this page. All of the assets between the two will be under the name of Sir Wan Lenya. The villa and salon as well as the manor within the Wu Wan Conservatory of Music will also be solely under Sir Wan Lenya's name except for the antique grand piano within it. The master was still thinking what to do about that pure white jade grand piano. I was told that Sir Wan could use it as you will, but the master wished for it not to be moved somewhere. Does Sir Wan accept? Said He Yu to Wan Lenya who just nodded his head in agreement. The lawyer sighed in relief when he saw that the new owner of the manor had agreed to this last selfish wish of his master. Last condition. After the papers are signed, Sire Wu Shui and Sir Wan Lenya will effectively lose the title of marriage and will be free to do as they want. Please sign the agreement for official processing. So, it could be announced in public officially as you've both decided. He Yu presented out a pen in front of Wan Lenya who just finished reading the contents and verified that it was the same as what the lawyer before him had explained. Wan Lenya stared at the pen in front of him as if hesitating, only pausing his movement for a while before he decided to sign the papers and stamped his fingerprint as well as family seal. At the moment he had done all that, Wan Lenya felt the hand he used to sign the papers of the divorcement slightly trembles and turned cold. In his mind hesitation and regret have appeared, his hands made a delayed gesture as if he wanted to take back what he just signed but Lenya could no longer take it back. The black folder suddenly closed and was taken by He Yu with a smile on his face, ignoring the turbulence within those silvery irises of this impassive gentleman before him. This was his master's orders. No matter what, once Wan Lenya signed the paper, no changes shall be made after. He Yu gave Wan Lenya an enigmatic smile though his eyes were filled with hidden disgust. Wan Lenya saw that as well but remained silent as usual. Despite the rudeness of the person before him, for some reason his anger couldn't fluctuate well. The lawyer didn't even stretch out his hand for a handshake because the one before him is famous for his slight OCD demeanor tendencies. He just stood up, preparing to leave. Then this one shall take his leave. If you will excuse me, said He Yu with his usual business smile. Bewildered Yu Wuya who was listening at the corner the whole time, a question. Why would Shui give Lenya every asset they've shared together as a married couple? He asked. Normally one would split their assets upon separation but, the master said that he doesn't wish to leave any more traces that showed their prior marriage in his ownership. Master has thrown the name of Wu As the divorce papers were signed, the master shall no longer have any connection to the Wu and Wan clan. This is the reason why everything was given to Sir Wan's ownership. As for the rest, you will understand what I mean after you visited the master's room. I shall take my leave now, replied He Yu. Before He Yu took his leave, he was stopped by Wan Lenya as the musician felt restless when he saw that lawyer gave him a meaningful but disdainful smile, at the moment he finished signing up the divorce agreement. Wait. Why is it that you call Shuer, master instead of prince? Asked Wan Lenya, but the latter didn't give him a straight answer and left him an ambiguous one. He Yu just gave them a taunting but judgmental smile. Sir shall understand when you come to meet the master in his hospital room. Have a good day, replied He Yu before taking his leave without looking back at the two who were left behind. The two heads to Wu Shue's hospital room, only for them to be welcomed by the nurses who are cleaning up the place. Aside from them, the person they came to meet is no longer there. The agitation Wan Lenya felt within his heart was finally given a reason. The moment they didn't see Wu Shue's figure inside that room, which is now cleaned up removing all former traces of a person, gave reason to the anxiety within his heart. Only then that both of them realized that the person they've come for had long left. Yu Wuya immediately ran after that lawyer who just took his leave nonchalantly after finishing his business. Damn! I know that something was wrong when that lawyer left just like that without meeting Shuai with us. Yu Wuya said as he left the hospital in a hurry to follow He Yu. Yu Wuya ran out to catch up with He Yu, but Wan Lenya remained standing silently by the open door of that empty room. Except for nurses, there's no traces left behind that shows that Wu Shuai stayed inside this place. Only the shadow of Wu Shuai's slender straight back from a week before was left in his dazed eyes. A certain emptiness that he never felt before swallows his heart. Wan Lenya couldn't explain the feeling of emptiness, just an unbearable loneliness hit his whole being. As if he lost a part of his soul. Chapter 31 2.4 Small Star, Empty Heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hospital. Wu Shuai's former room. Left behind by Yu Wuya, Wan Lenya could only stand there in dazed. The nurses looked at him worriedly as his face turned ashen with shock. Sir, is everything all right? Asked by the nurses. Taking a deep breath as if he's extremely tired, Lenya took a second before answering. Sigh, yes, there is no problem. Would it be all right for me to stay here for a moment? Replied Wan Lenya, leaving the nurses bewildered before they reluctantly nodded their heads and left the room staring at him with confusion in their eyes. As he was left alone inside the room, Wan Lenya dragged a chair and sat by the opened window looking at the full-bloomed plum blossom scenery. This was the scene Wu Shuai wanted to see that day. Wan Lenya was in daze as if he was in his deep thoughts while unconsciously grabbing at his chest above his heart. The throbbing pain within is like a proof that he lost something extremely significant. He was pondering what's wrong until he heard soft childish voices just outside the open door. Oh, I told you the fairy had left. But the fairy said he will leave us some snacks in his room after he goes. There is someone else in the room. How could we sneak inside? Yeah, he looks so scary. Cold as ice. The fairy said he is a demon king. What should we do now? What to do? Hearing their dialogue, Wan Lenya truly noticed a bag hidden by the corner of the bed. Clumsily hidden, the bag is filled with snacks which children enjoy. It seems that these children were leeching sweets at Wu Shuai's room when the former is still around. After all, that person loves to eat sweet things. Thinking about this little cute hobby of Wu Shuai, Lenya's lips unconsciously upturned. As if he thought of something, Wan Lenya took the bag of snacks and went to where the children are. He lowered himself on their height level and went down on one knee. If you could answer a few questions, I will give all these to you guys in exchange. Wan Lenya said as he showed the three children before him the snack-filled bag Wu Shuai left intended for them. Ah, but that's what the fairy left for us. The demon king is bullying. You can't take what the fairy left for us. snack sweets. As if the children were unafraid of his cold demeanor, Lenya couldn't help but asked, "Are you not afraid of me?" The children looked at him with a cute confused expression on their faces. 3 bewildered little devils. Why, the evil fairy said that the demon king only looks cold outside but is warm inside. That's right, the fairy never lies. His voice is so amazing too. Yes, when he sings the sounds is like you're in heaven, but it feels sad. Do you want to see? I've secretly recorded it once. You must never tell the fairy, or he'll get angry. Wan Lenya nodded his head. Then he watched the children brought out a tablet and played a single recording. Based on the angle of the video, it seemed to be recorded secretly without Wu Shui knowing. Within the screen, Wu Shui was looking at the window watching the plum blossom blooms. Only his side profile was seen on the tablet screen. His exquisite but pale face was recorded on the video. They could see him singing as they saw his mouth moving, and sounds recorded on the tablet were heard. The song he sang is entitled, "My Heart is Broken," by Evanescence. Lyrics of "My Heart is Broken" by Evanescence. I pull away to face the pain, I close my eyes and drift away over the fear that I will never find a way to heal my soul, and I will wander, till the end of time, torn away from you. My heart is broken, sweet sleep, my dark angel, deliver us from sorrow's hold, or from my heart. I can't go on living this way, but I can't go back the way I came, shamed of this fear that I will never find a way to heal my soul, and I will wander, till the end of time. Half a life without you, my heart is broken, sweet sleep, my dark angel, deliver us. Change, open your eyes to the light, I denied it all so long, oh so long. Say goodbye, goodbye, my heart is broken, sweet sleep, my dark angel, deliver us. My heart is broken, sweet sleep, my dark angel, deliver us. My heart is broken, sweet sleep, my dark angel, deliver us from sorrow's hold. A/N, credits to the singer and composer of the song. The song is not mine. The song is about a broken-hearted person, who decided let go of everything because someone broke his heart. The music is slow and mellow, but the core of the music is sadness and misery of loss. Wan Lenya's tears couldn't help but fall as he listened to that familiar voice singing with such emotions, eventually melting even his ice-cold heart. That person in the video was his. The reason why his soul aches is because he lost him when he was already his, and that it was him who let him go for a mirage of someone who can never be the same as his wife. It was even during his wife's greatest sorrow. How could he not know? For someone like Wu Shui who loves music as much as he does, how could he let go of that person's hand in his darkness moment? Even leaving this person on his own in his despair. Only then did he finally realize why Wu Shui never looked at him once that day. Wu Shui was afraid. He was horrified by the fact that he might or couldn't give me the freedom I wanted if he saw my face. He was anxious that he won't be able to control his emotions, his love for me, and won't be able to let go. Wan Lenya finally realized at this moment that what he lost isn't only his wife but also his soul and heart, who cried out and loved only one person, Wu Shui. No, that was someone else. The Wu Shui he knows never moved his heart. That's why even 3 years had passed, he couldn't feel anything for him. Only that person, that one who disguised himself as Wu Shui but not the real one. It was someone who used Wu Shui's face, but the one inside is someone else. He knows he is right. He couldn't explain, and there is no evidence to his conjecture, but his soul knows. That Wu Shui he saw that day is not the same Wu Shui who married him. Though in the end, it was still him who let him leave and escape from him. As planned, on the same day the following news about Wu Shui was released. First is marriage with Wan Lenya, the king of music, being officially dissolved. Second is Wu Shui being disowned from Wu clan's bloodline, he is no longer the prince of Wu clan and cut off the remaining ties with Wu. Lastly is about his real inheritance. Wu Shui is the He royal family's only remaining direct bloodline except for the current emperor who married a male empress. The purity of his royal bloodline is even purer than those at Wu clan. He finally accepted his maternal family assets and will be enthroned as the crown prince of He royal clan by the next month. These three news spread in Wuhan Conservatoire of Music like a wildfire, and among them, one had been waiting for this as it was something he planned. It was a young man with short obsidian hair and a pair of scarlet orbs. His appearance is the embodiment of innocence, brightness and naivete, but at least at this moment his scarlet eyes are filled with mirth and madness as he watched Wu Shue's figure from the television in front of him. Smiling evilly as if he is some kind of evil being. Even after losing your fingers, your husband, and your identity as Wu clan's prince, you can still block my way. Should I thoroughly destroy you then, Prince Shui? Ha ha ha, said Xing Ran as he watches the television in his room. After the announcement was made, there was chaos within the palace of Wu and Wan clan. They would have never expected that the unloved prince of Wu clan would have that kind of bloodline. Wu Shui, who is now called as He Shui, was considered a pure-blooded royalty. His blood is so pure that even Wan Lenya's identity as music industry's king cannot help but fall short behind his real background. When the Wan clan saw the live broadcast, they couldn't help but feel extremely disappointed. They felt that they've ignored a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to ascend to the peak of fame. The clan leaders and elders were all shaking their heads in shame, but among them only Lady Wan showed a bitter but understanding smile when she saw the news. The moment she saw the news about He Shui, only then she understood why she felt uncomfortable the moment her son and Wu Shui decided to divorce. That restless in her heart, she felt that day when the little prince ignored their presence, not only hers but also her son, made her realize that the little prince had decided to throw away his past. The past where he loved her son unconditionally. By throwing his past identity as Wu Shui, he will now live his real life as a real royalty. After all, the only things that kept him from leaving before, is his love for music, which he lost when his fingers were crippled, and her son, Wan Lenya, who broke his heart when he agreed to their divorce. It was at that point in time that she realized that the moment her son and the little prince decided to get divorced on that day is the time that they would lose all rights they used to think as normal. Like calling He Shui his name or even existing in his world. Being able to stay by his side or even being acquainted with this child named Shui. They have lost all rights and become nothing but mere strangers to each other. When Lady Wan saw her son, Wan Lenya, watching the news with no emotions, not even the usual coldness in his being exist at the moment, and then seeing his soulless eyes, only then she understood that within the Wan clan there is only one person who lost everything. The moment the divorce between Wu and Wan clan was finalized. When He Shui left the country, Wan Lenya lost everything. He lost his emotions, his familial love, his heart, and his soul. The only thing that kept this person alive is music. Music, which is the only remaining connection he can have with He Shui, who loves it second after him. Wan Lenya left his clan's mansion and headed back to Wu Wan Conservatoire. Heading back home in that place which can only be called as a house they formerly shared and now can only regarded as his sole manor. He walked towards the music room where the white jade piano is placed. Sitting in front of the white piano, Wan Lenya's fingers moved before each piano key, playing a certain etude while falling deep in his thoughts. Only the sound of piano can be heard in where he is. Wan Lenya's thoughts at the moment while playing his piano: strive. Endeavors. Continue waiting. As long I don't stop playing, you will return right. My one and only true muse. Chapter 32. 2.5 Third small star, capture me, I'm here. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 32. 2.5 Third small star, capture me, I'm here. 3 years later. At Wu Wan Conservatoire. Wan Lenya's manor. Wan Lenya became a renowned king of music globally, and he is now one of the most desired professors in Wu Wan Conservatoire. But ever since his marriage with Wu Shui dissolved, he lost interest in anything, even towards his former attraction with Xing Ran, except for music, as if his heart had died. Xing Ran, the protagonist Shou, who lost the halo of the protagonist Gong, Wan Lenya's protection had not gotten that far yet. One for the fact that his talents are mediocre without Wan Lenya's support, his skill didn't develop properly. Because of this, his title of being a prodigy become a lie in the eyes of others. Without the pampering and care of the protagonist Gong, the protagonist show's halo was starting to disappear. The changes in Wan Lenya's life didn't end just that. After his marriage with Wu Shui had ended, Wan Lenya cut his ties with Wan family. After losing his emotions, he lost his love for his family altogether. His only obsession focuses only in music. This is the only thing that can be considered as a connection to Wu Shui. Music is the only thing Wu Shui loves the most aside from him. This is their only connection. In the small manor he owned. Within the conservatoire, placed and hidden carefully within the most secure place of the house, is a pure, white jade, grand piano. This is the piano Wu Shui had gifted to Wan Lenya when they got married. It was Shui's token of love for him and now his only remaining treasure. Aside from him, no one is able to enter the manor, much less touch the piano. Once when a student sneaked inside the manor, while the security system was offline, saw the piano and was mesmerized by it. Most musicians would be able to see the allure that the piano possess on sight. An achromic piano as if made of jade. Flawless and tintless. Like a luxurious ivory that cannot be easily bought by money. The student tried playing it, forgetting the danger that involves the forbidden instrument in that secluded place. Everyone in the conservatoire knows that this white jade piano is Wan Lenya's only taboo. The student in the end got him caught by Wan Lenya before he could even touch a single key on it. But as if his reverse scale was touched, Wan Lenya personally broke that student's fingers and banned him from the music industry forever. Such news caused waves in their industry which dubbed Wan Lenya the title of Demon King. His talent is unparalleled, his identity and wealth cannot be contained, moreover his cruelty and mercilessness is notorious, which is why most people were afraid of him. But at this moment this Demon King is playing piano inside his manor. An etude known as the Sorrow of Love, Chrysler's Liebeslied. This etude is the turmoil of his heart. Without him noticing, a person was standing by the back door listening to his piano with half of his face covered in a mask preventing people from knowing who he was. This person whispered the following words in French. Tu m'appelles. Je suppose que je devrais vous donner une réponse. Ma chérie. Translation. Are calling for me. I guess I should give you an answer. My dearest. That person only leave the place when he saw Xing Ran coming over to call for Wan Lenya. Xing Ran was only able to see this person's side profile, but even he couldn't completely see his face. He knows that this person is like a devil. His dark aura and playful demeanor shows it all. As his presence was noticed by the latter, that person gave him a frisky smirk as if saying to him that he caught him peeking. Xing Ran could only feel that this person possesses a heavenly beauty but had a dark and evil presence. That person has a pitch black hair and those annoyingly inhuman celestial blue eyes which inadvertently made Xing Ran felt this person is destructive but playful, and hated him for unknown reasons. There's even a hint of amusement tracing the corner of his upturned lips when looking at him nonchalantly. Only his mischievous smile lingers in Xing Ran's mind after the man has left. Once Xing Ran arrived by the manor's front door, he rang the bell and couldn't hear any response from the inside of the house. He waited for a minute before shouting out from the outside. Brother Wan! Brother Wan! The test for candidate professors was about to begin. The senior tasked me to call Brother Wan to come to the venue. Shouted Xing Ran from the outside. Half an hour later, Wan Lenya finally went out of the house with his usual white suit and a light gray silk scarf. The atmosphere around him is cold as if ice completely surrounds him. Wan Lenya's whole being excludes the aura of coldness, desolation, and loneliness. Like when the core of his heart left, everything that made him human had disappeared at the same. Only the cruelty, madness, and coldness remain in his human husk. A millennium iceberg that cannot be melted by anything or anyone aside for that person who can make him human and melt his frozen heart. When he saw Xing Ran before him, his icy eyes couldn't help but turn even colder and darker, especially when he heard how this man called for his name. The privilege of calling his name is something only that person is allowed to do so. A mere dirt shouldn't even be allowed to speak, much less utter his divine name. Xing Ran. Next time call me sir instead of brother. You are forbidden of calling me with such intimacy. We are nothing but superior and company worker, said Wan Lenya as his voice is deep and emotionless. After secretly investigating what really happened behind Wu Shui's accident before he crippled his fingers. It was said that the last person to meet his wife is this two-faced person before him. As if the mist in his eyes were cleared, the former attraction Wan Lenya felt for Xing Ran and turned ultimate to hatred and disgust. He hated him so much that he didn't even want to see his face, but because he is one of the conservatoire's popular teachers, he couldn't just kick out the guy without sufficient proof and solid evidence. Else his Demon King title will upgrade to Tyrant instead. Hearing what Wan Lenya just told him, Xing Ran didn't dare to show his indignation, but his hands, hidden on his back, were bleeding from him gripping it hard just to control his anger. Wan Lenya gave Xing Ran a gauging gaze which only lasted for a few seconds. They left the manor and heads to the venue where the candidate professors will be tested. During the test, Wan Lenya kept his eyes close while listening to the instrumental sound echoing in the area. If he heard even one mistake, the candidate will be stopped in the middle of his play and sent out. This signifies that the candidate failed. During the audition, Wan Lenya had never opened his eyes even once. Beside him, his wife's friend who ended up being one of his few close friends tried to convince him to properly do his job as a judge. Seeing Lenya's closed eyes as if sleeping, Yu Wuya had to nudge his friend to check whether this Demon King is really asleep or not. Are you even really listening, Lenya? Asked Wuya. His voice showed not even a hint of emotion but only aloofness. I'm not deaf and have ears. Even if I don't want to listen, I could only do so. As I didn't cover my ears. Replied Lenya. Hearing his friend's sarcastic answer, Yu Wuya could only sigh in his heart. Then, at least listen properly for the last one. This person is someone I've personally invited over when I've attended the concours in France to teach here. Don't be rude. At least listen properly this once. Said Wuya, but he had only seen his friend uncaringly nodded once. Just as the last candidate entered the venue caused a sudden silence as if they'd all stopped breathing. All eyes were on the stage. The figure that appeared on the stage looked like a fallen angel. He was wearing a tailored suit which has a bit of a touch of femininity and royalty. The suit was a mixture of black and dark sapphire, tightly fitting in that sexy body line. He doesn't look completely slim nor muscular. His body has the perfect proportion of muscles and flesh. With that thin waist that can be held by one hand. If his clothes were removed, those lascivious mermaid lines connected to his abs would make anyone feel lustful. The body is already perfect if you add up his snow-white skin which looks delicate as a baby and that heavenly beauty that was hidden behind that charcoal-colored mask. He looks like angelic being with hints of darkness, liveliness, and seduction. This person can only be called a little devil or an evil fairy. He can capture everyone as long as he gives them a single glance. Taking not only their eyes, their breath but also their souls. Recognizing that enchantress on the stage, isn't that the person from this morning? Whispered Xing Ran. Even he couldn't help but feel enchanted by that figure on the stage. His entrance caused stillness. They watched quietly as the little fairy sat in front of the piano. A soft light focused on his head, making his obsidian hair sparkle with a bit of light as if a dim halo enveloping his whole being. Then everyone saw those long and thin fingers covered with black gloves hovering above the piano keys finally landed on its target. The etude he had chosen to play is one of his original works called Mon cher diable, My Dear Devil, an extremely difficult piece that was considered a devil's music and that only a devil can fully express the deep emotion in it. This piece is a music of sorrowful love, passion and tragedy. This was his answer to Lenya's etude of sorrowful love. That moment when he looked at Juan Lenya's appearance 3 years ago is the day that he decided to leave. His heart once again skipped a beat and made him realize that the protagonist gong of this star is that person. That person who he solely loves in the whole cosmos. The person he thought he had lost forever. That malignant being who haunted his soul all the time in his dreams and his only loss in reality. The only owner of his heart, soul and his whole. His beloved, his other half. The moment he recognized him, He Shui wanted to cry out his heart, his desires of his warmth, his love and his everything but. Remembering his agreement to their divorce he couldn't help but get angry. Hatred filled his heart which led him to continue his plan on leaving. When his rage subsides, he lets He Yu keep sending his reports about Juan Lenya's daily life. He knew that the moment he leaves, this person will change completely. His tenderness was gone. The admiration Juan Lenya thought he had towards Xing Ran disappeared without a trace. Even his familial love towards his clan dissolved like water in summer. Juan Lenya becomes something akin to a soulless doll and the only thing that keeps him for living is music. Music that he knows that can remain forever connected to him, He Shui, who loves music aside for himself. These memories of that blank 3 years where they are not together. He compiled them all in this dark etude. In the end He Shui couldn't control his heart that desired this person and could only look for him, playing around in front of him to be captured once again. Accumulating his feelings which he closed up when he finished his task in that first world. In that world which he had fallen deeply in love for the first time that he couldn't even remove himself from such a passionate and indulgent love. As well as his greatest misery and agony as he thought that he lost his only love forever. The only way he could have done so is to kill his emotion and seal off his feelings of love. Killing his soul slowly to ease the pain of losing that person. Controlled by his feelings, He Shui violently pressed the first note. He had also expressed the warmest love and endless suffering. He struggles to stop himself from completely falling into madness, losing his mind, and grabbing that last straw of hope that they may see each other again. He hated that world that gave him that man, he also hated this man for giving into his heart's desire and also hated himself more for falling so deeply that he almost couldn't control himself. Then he returned to that empty world only by himself. The coldness and desolation filled his heart that became empty after losing him and his last struggles, wishing with all his heart that they will once again meet. To have that demon king captured him once again and forever stayed caged within that warm embrace. Juan Lenya has long been captured by the sound of piano the man on stage is creating. The moment the first note was heard, his eyes opened and looked for the source that was making his heartbeat beyond his control. As if the millennium iceberg frozen in time started to melt and then he saw that little fairy on stage with his face half covered. That person's pain, anger, hatred, suffering, passionate love, hope, and helplessness warped in that dark sonata he is playing. Every note that little fairy pressed is like a knife that stabbed his heart. Lenya could hardly breathe. Hence his breathing ragged as he watched that little one on stage showed his defenseless state, his heart, his core, his pain, and his endless sorrow. He couldn't even blink his eyes afraid that the little fairy will disappear like before and cause his soul to go even crazier. To be captured in that possessively warm embrace and that is He Shui's only wish, his only hope. His playing paused as if he lost his soul in dazed. Silence descended when Lenya saw that, he couldn't stop his tears from falling as his silver eyes that locked onto that soulless figure on the stage. The audience endured the empty silence waiting for him to helplessly make his timid exit. They did expect for that motionless body to strike the remaining notes as if he had gone mad. The excessive force the man used to press each note made the audience feel entranced that their own heart is being hammered by a steel nail. The shrill notes that hit the jammed pack high notes struck the audience eardrums going straight to their heart and lungs. Each note caused holes, making their heart pump loudly, wanting to escape their chest, and their lungs aching, hindering them to breathe properly, making them breathless. They watched the youth bend his body as his black hair is soaked with his sweat, making an illuminating but enchanting effect. They watched him engrossed in music, and fell into it completely. They could feel his desperation and hope all together, mixing into an unknown world of madness. Channeling his last struggle, he pressed the last note and gasped as if successfully escaping hell. With that, the music of the devil ended, encapsulating them in a trance of silence and fear. Gasped. His gasping was a sign of him breathing, followed by his uncontrollable pants that echoed in that quiet hall, and then a long silence was heard. The audience remained silent in fear of waking up the devil once again. The silence is terrifying that even a needle dropped could be heard. Thump. 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 They could hear their heartbeats ringing in their ears. Some of them were crying in fear, some held on their chest breathless. They watched the boy hopefully looks in the distance and only muttered a few words of desperation. The silence in the hall allowed them to hear his only wish. Capture me. I'm here. Chapter 33. 2.6 Small Star, Fortitude. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Inside the audition room. An almost endless silence. The lone figure of the exhausted fallen angel at the center of the stage. Everyone's eyes were on him, but none of it was felt by him. As if exhausting his last breath of desperation, the little fairy on the stage slowly lost consciousness. Looking at him carefully, they could see that he is hyperventilating. The audience gasped when they saw his current state, but the following scene struck them dumbfounded. The one who appeared on stage without anyone noticing is no other than this industry's demon king, Wan Lenya. He caught the little fairy on the stage in his arms, carrying him precisely within his embrace, with his cold eyes slowly melting to show his tenderness and love for the one in his arms. Gasping as if trying to catch his breath, the little fairy's misty eyes could only see Wan Lenya's blurry figure, but what caught his eyes were those obsidian irises that seemed to be filled with stars and galaxies. Before he let his sight completely fade, he felt air being forced in his mouth for him to intake, allowing him to stabilize his breathing for a moment. When he opened his celestial blue eyes, he saw Wan Lenya giving him CPR, to allow him to intake oxygen that will prevent him from blacking out even for a few seconds. He Shui could see Lenya's silver eyes reddening as if those deep black eyes from before was a fragment of his imagination, and then he heard Lenya call for him between his trembling hoarse voice. That I finally found you," said Wan Lenya as he pulled He Shui tightly in his embrace, afraid that he would escape from his clutches once again. Feeling the sweetest pain from this person's obsession, He Shui couldn't help but smile from the bottom of his heart as he hugged this person back unconditionally. This man is his and can only be his. The audience was shocked by what they heard. Among the audience, only few of them are able to recognize the identity of the person with Wan Lenya's arms. Yu Wuya watched from the distance with a smile as if he expected that scene to unfold before him. A seat distance beside him, he saw Xing Ran's innocent Fa.Ade broken, showing his craziest side while glaring at the stage. To be exact, at He Shui and Wan Lenya's arms with eyes filled with madness and envy, even gritting his teeth could hear it clashing. Seeing that Yu Wuya couldn't help but frowned while looking coldly at Xing Ran, their investigation was not in vain. This person is indeed a Black Lotus with a two-faced persona. In Wuya's mind, this person was definitely the mastermind of Shui's accident 3 years ago. After He Shui fainted, the event was forcefully finished, especially when Wan Lenya left the venue with his wife in his arms without caring for others, even the event itself. Xing Ran, who tried to follow, received a death glare from Wan Lenya and froze at where he stands, unable to run after them. Yu Wuya took the reins of the event in his friends instead, letting the pair leave without anyone blocking. Those who pass will become assistant professors to be trained properly before giving them a proper position in the conservatoire. After finishing all that, he left to see his friend, who took his best friend to leave, worried that something will happen. In the manor owned by Lenya, he let his wife rest on his bed after changing his clothes to pajamas. Wan Lenya never removed any traces of Wu Shui in the manor. This person's clothes and other personal things remained where it was. Even when cleaning the place, Wan Lenya didn't dare to move it somewhere else. The only thing he changed is the 2 single beds that used to be found in the master's bedroom and changed it to a king-sized double bed instead. During their married days, they are the kind of couple which is only written on the paper. There were no romantic feelings between them. Before it was just He Shui one-sidedly loving his ex-husband, Wan Lenya. Then they got divorce. Letting his wife sleep properly on his bed, his silver irises never move away from this person. Afraid that he will lose him all over again. Manor. Master's bedroom. Wan Lenya couldn't understand the reason how his wife could play piano once again. The truth is that he didn't care as long the latter had returned to his side, but when he noticed the black gloves covering his wife's hands. Lenya, enchanted by his curiosity, removed the gloves only to see visible surgical scars all over his wife's 10 fingers extending to the whole back of the 2 hands. The scars were deep, leaving visible and ugly traces on his wife's fair hands. It was very obvious that those are traces of constant surgery. Seeing those scars, Wan Lenya could feel the hardship He Shui underwent just so he could play instruments in this lifetime. He once again felt regret and hate for himself. Gently kissing the hands of his wife as if wanting to ease his sufferings. All of the sudden Wan Lenya someone ringing the doorbell. He doesn't need to guess who it was, as there are only 2 people in this time that would come over to see him. One is the annoying, attention-seeker, Xing Ran, and the other one is his friend, Yu Wuya. Once he peeks through the house front door surveillance monitor, the man outside is indeed one of the 2. This person came over as soon as he finished his business with the audition. Knowing that the latter's relationship with his wife, Wan Lenya could only reluctantly let him inside his manor. Yu Wuya sighed in relief when he saw that He Shui was only sleeping with no other problems. Seeing that Lenya is tightly holding Shui's hands without gloves, Yu Wuya couldn't help but frown for a moment and once again sigh when he saw his friend's sharp gaze on him. BDNV, as he knew the reason for that, he could only explain things to Lenya and ease his anger. Lenya. Please don't glare at me. If my wife, He Yu, didn't brought me to France with his excuse of business trip, I wouldn't know that Shui was in France. Explained Wuya, who is under Lenya's sharp gaze. Why didn't you tell me? Replied Lenya coldly. Woa, if you ask me if I'm afraid of my wife divorcing me in case I told you about Shui, then, I am. Moreover, Shui wished not to tell you as well. Going along with his wish, then yours have always been my priority since before. So, you must not get angry at me. Said Wuya with his arms raised in defeat. Wan Lenya could only accept his friend's reasoning, as he knows that He Yu and Yu Wuya have always put Shui before him at all times. But that doesn't stop his fury, and could only ignore his friend in disappointment. Though his eyes turned gentle as it fell on He Shui's sleeping figure. It is as if that cold-hearted man from before is not him. Yu Wuya, seeing the scene of the cold-hearted man's face turning gentle as he looks at the sleeping little fairy on the bed, he can only feel happiness at first, then next his face portraits extreme worry. After all, he doesn't know why Lenya let Xing Ran, this person who caused the whole situation, to stay by his friend's side all this time. Yu Wuya is worried about Wan Lenya's fickle heart. With a deep frown on his face, Wuya spoke, Lenya, Shui had suffered enough for this lifetime, and there is no way we will tolerate any more of the past. That person. You shouldn't allow Xing Ran to stay by Shui's side no matter what. Even though I don't know why you still let that Black Lotus stay by your side, that person is dangerous. A dark expression appeared on Lenya's face, even though his voice turned colder than usual. I know what you wish to say, Wuya. In the first place, I let that thing remain by my side because it was the most painful punishment I could give him. He is obsessed with me. Wanting to own me, my heart, and my body all for himself, but for these few years he could only see but not touch. Sooner or later even seeing will be just a wish. I was planning on playing with that toy for a bit more to pass time, but since my wife returned, I would no longer waste my time with him. You may remove him, Wuya. It was by then that the person on the bed woke up, groggily opening his eyes. The first figure He Shui saw was that familiar cold but captivating face of the protagonist Gong. Then he looked at the large hand holding on his. The moment he saw that his gloves were removed with his hands for others to see. Instantly, Shui removed his hand from the larger warm hands gripping on it. With a deep frown between his eyebrows, He Shui instinctively hid his hands under the blanket as if fearing for others to see his ugly hands. The pair who saw that action of his, couldn't stop themselves from making ugly expressions, especially Wan Lenya, whose face turned completely grim when he saw his wife's defensive reaction. He Shui ignored their expressions, acting like he didn't see them frowning. If not because the two noticed the awkwardness in his body movements, hidden behind his nonchalant fa.ade, they would have believed that his reaction was of surprise instead of being a defensive one. He Shui looked around the room and recognized that this was the master's bedroom in the manor owned by Wan Lenya inside the conservatory. The manor that used to be under their name when they were still married. Seeing that there are no apparent changes inside, his expressions soften a bit in nostalgia. Without looking at the faces of the other two inside the room, did I faint? Asked He Shui, avoiding to meet their gaze. Yes, your heart is still weak as usual. Don't get too emotional when playing, Shui. Replied Yu Wuya as a smile appeared on his face while looking at He Shui. I feel too deeply at this time. It won't happen again. Wuya, tell you to fetch me. Said He Shui, still not looking at them. It was by then that someone grabbed his chin and gently moved his face to look at the one who made such action. He Shui saw the usual deadpan face of his former husband before him. Seeing that familiar obsession on those silver eyes, Shui's heart started beating so fast, but he hid his emotion behind his cold fa.ade while his impassioned eyes stared at the latter like he was looking at a stranger. Seeing those emotionless eyes staring back at him, Lenya felt someone piercing his heart. His wife's emotionless eyes brought him to the reality that this person before him, which used to see him as his everything, is no longer around. This is the person he chose to leave when he made that foolish decision to pursue that fake muse. The choices he made before, now condemned him to become a stranger to the person he loves. Now former wife. Wan Lenya's fingers shook a bit before he spoke, though his face remained as indifferent as before. The only changes were the tenderness within his gaze and his unconsciously action of making his voice less frightening. Lenya's face remained cold as his voice turned softer, seemingly afraid that he would scare the beauty before him. Stay. You have made your choice to enter the conservatory, and as a passer you shall become my assistant. You will live in this villa as your abode. I will have someone send your things over. Please rest for now. Said Lenya as he removed his hands from the latter's chin, averted his eyes and left the room without looking back. He wanted to give He Shui space and privacy. After all, their current relationship has no difference from being a stranger to one another. Seeing his friend take his leave, Lenya. Shui, I'll send your things over tomorrow. Have a rest for today. Said Wuya, who immediately followed Lenya, who left the room. As soon as the two left the room, the deadpan face of Shui had suddenly disappeared. Right now, painted with a hint of mischievousness within his eyes, an evil smirk could be found by the uplifted corner of his lips. He looks like a playful little evil fairy. Since you've dared to divorce this lord, don't think you'll be able to stay by this lord's side without any punishment, my dear husband, murmured He Shui as he remembers that man's shaking fingers who held his chin for a moment. Right after Wan Lenya left his manor with Yu Wuya following behind him, he went to the place where most instructors gather. As he expected, his target is among the crowd, socializing. Upon his arrival, the original loud area turned silent. Not only the new assistant instructors were quiet, even the old ones remained shut off their mouths. Wan Lenya looked at Xing Ran, his current assistant instructor. Xing Ran. Shuai had passed the test. He will be my assistant starting tomorrow and live in my manor, said Lenya. Everyone was startled when they heard that the prodigy from before will work under the Demon King, much less live in the same place they've all considered as the forbidden zone in the whole conservatoire. The manor. What? Replied by the stunned Xing Ran. Ignoring Xing Ran's reaction, Lenya continues to speak his lines. You will no longer be my assistant and will be promoted to a regular instructor of regular class starting tomorrow. Without any acceptable reason, you are forbidden in going to my manor. Dismiss my classes for today as your last duty as my assistant. The Demon King just finished issuing his commands and took his leave after speaking one-sided. After the Demon King and Weia left, a dark and extremely ugly expression appeared on Xing Ran's face. Within his eyes are hints of jealousy, envy, and hatred. Among the others who had seen the performance He Shuai had done, some of them recognized his former identity, and so happened that Xing Ran isn't one of them, but his hate towards him is the same as before. On the other hand, as Yu Weia left to go attend his classes for that day, Wu Lenya went back to his manor to check on his wife. But as soon as he enters his bedroom, the room or the bed has no one on it. The person he left there for a moment suddenly disappeared. His heart was once again struck with immense fear. He ran around the manor just to look for that slender and beautiful figure haunting him in his dreams. It took him years to finally find him again. This time he is not willing to lose his sight on him. So, when that person suddenly disappeared from his sight, he felt immense distress of losing this person. He was about to go crazy in his mind as he looked for his former wife. Just when he was about to fall in madness, piano sounds entered his ears. Following the sound, he saw He Shuai in front of the pure white jade piano, playing a single piece. Afraid of disturbing him, Lenya stood quietly at the distance listening to the piano, only to regret listening to it. The piano piece was filled with feelings of sadness and melancholy. Schubert's Winterreise. This song's cycle starts with a man being dumped by the love of his life and it goes downhill from there. Winterreise is a long journey through a desolate landscape of lonely melodies, chilling figures, and ominous crows. Just when you're thinking this guy's not taking it well, he comes across as a lone hurdy-gurdy player. They play this duet and walk off into the dusk together, presumably to die, only for this piece to be played with one person amplifying the feelings of desolation. It's a very sad music piece. Hearing this piano piece, the memories of years ago played in Lenya's mind. The lonely back in that hospital room. That desolated atmosphere surrounding that slender back of his wife which is facing him. With those scenes from that hospital when his wife got into an accident where he was deemed not to be able to play any instrument ever again. It was the very day that he, Wan Lenya, had chosen somebody else instead of his wife to like. Following the day he lost him, and then he realized his wife had left. The other half of his soul and his love had gone somewhere else. Outside of his reach. The notes strike his heart, like making him realize once more that the person who first let go has always been him. Wan Lenya could only close his eyes, plunging in his deepest regret. His gravest mistake. Lamenting within those past memories. After finding his determination, opening his eyes once again. He looked at that figure imprinted within his soul. This time. I won't allow you to leave. And this time, I will never leave your side again. My muse. My wife. My everything. Thoughts of Wan Lenya. Chapter 34. 2.7 Small Star, Buried. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Manor in front of a pure white piano. Looking at He Shuai's figure playing the piano. Watching that beautiful slender back of his love, his emotions had undergone changes from immense pain, regret, remorse to unshakable determination and passionate love. Wan Lenya made his decision, he would stay by this person's side despite the latter's hate and impassiveness. Giving this person all of his tenderness, care, and love, even if the person itself never returned his feelings as long as this person, he loves with all his life, stays by his side. That much is enough for him. As if remembering something, Wan Lenya left the practice room to get a small blanket from the bedroom and returned to continue listening to He Shui's playing. This person has always been afraid of the cold. So he must get something to warm him up, as he couldn't hug him. At least not yet. It took a while until He Shui's playing finished and noticed the latter's presence with the room. He looks back to stare at the other presence in the room. Looking at Wan Lenya without any emotion imprinted on his face. Watching the latter as if he is a stranger barging into his practice time. Wan Lenya just smiled at him as if not seeing his wife's distant expression. Walked towards him without hesitation and draped the small blanket he took from the bedroom to He Shui's back. Carefully covering He Shui with the blanket until he was satisfied with his work. Trying his best to mellow his voice as he spoke, "I'll be cooking dinner. Is there something you wish to eat?" asked Wan Lenya to He Shui. Staring at Lenya with bewildered face, he still gave him an answer, "Pasta," replied He Shui. A small smile appeared from the corner of that cold man's lips. "Okay. You can play a few more pieces. I'll call you when dinner is ready," said Wan Lenya before heading to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Host, the protagonist show had gone crazy. You should watch this. I'll watch the recordings later. Continue recording for now. About my husband, record his movements only when he is out of my sight. Understood, host. In the evening during dinner, the married couple, He Yu and Yu Wuya, dropped by to send He Shui his clothes and other things. Wan Lenya didn't force him to sleep in the master's bedroom, instead he prepared another room in the manor for He Shui to stay in. Eating dinner together, the married couple, He Yu and Yu Wuya, left right away after half an hour after eating. Leaving the two to have their own privacy. On the other hand, Xing Ran in his own place made a mess in his room. With few things broken and scattered around the place can only be explained in one word. Disaster. As if a storm had broken through the room, destroying everything in its path, leaving only the traces of a destruction. In the middle of that room is Xing Ran, losing all his demure, with his face completely black in madness. His hands gripping his hair in anguish, rage, and abhorrence. Who the hell is that man? He Shui from France. Hump. So, what? If I can destroy his wife, I could do so with you too. He is mine. He can only be mine. Wan Lenya, you are mine, said Xing Ran in his midst of madness. His mind is full of chaotic ideas and his obsession towards the king of music had already gone beyond the normal measure. In his mind Wan Lenya is his possession, no one else is supposed to have him except from him. This kind of obsession. Our system, Executioner 13, who was watching and recording in the corner, could only react in this way. Woa, this little human is crazier than I thought. He dared to covet my host's man. Does this thing not want to live anymore? 2 years have passed since He Shui became the king's assistant professor. Within those years, the former couple had spent most of their time together. Greeting each other. Good morning and good night. Eating 3 meals together every day. Even spending their free time practicing piano as a pair. During these past years, Wan Lenya had treated He Shui as his queen, pampering and doting him endlessly, wishing for almost nothing except for him not leaving his side. Eventually, He Shui's anger lessened and slowly forgave his husband. He Shui no longer treated Wan Lenya as a stranger. He treats him more than a friend, but nothing beyond that. He Shui still hasn't given Wan Lenya his full trust. It's not that he is not willing to trust him again, but he is just afraid of betrayal for the second time. He Shui became infamous for his eccentric ways of teaching. He doesn't go to his designated classrooms, instead he tasks his students to look for him all over the conservatoire, and the students who find him could ask him to play any music pieces they wanted to learn and they would be taught until they could play it on their own. Moreover, after hearing his singing voice once during one of the school events, students not only in the instrumental music department but also from the choir and musical department wished to attend his classes. The students will have to look for him all over the conservatoire to receive his lessons, and Lenya will have to look all over the same way just to send his food and stuff. With his overwhelming talents in music, he could play any music piece and instruments that he became the most sought professor in the conservatoire, even surpassing Lenya, by the students and other professors. While in those months that passed almost everyone had witnessed their king's servile gestures towards him. Serving him food, preparing coats and blankets during cold days, and cold drinks were prepared during hot days, personally made by the king of music. With his undeniable talents that could match the king of music, he was titled as the evil fairy within the music world, with others calling him queen in secret. During that time, He Shue softened his heart and started to show slight acceptance to Wan Lenya's feelings, slowly regaining the former's trust, once again waiting for the latter to accept his love one more time. Afternoon, within the greenhouse forest, the students had caught He Shue sleeping under the tree in the middle of the day. It seems that he escaped from morning lessons, leaving it all for Wan Lenya to handle, and so during their break the students decided to look for this vanishing assistant professor of theirs and dragged him for afternoon lessons by the orders of the king. Within the conservatoire, there are greenhouse gardens which had venues and few instruments prepared for the professors to use during their lessons. There are professors who bring their students out for practical image training, and so there are few pianos and instruments scattered all around the land of their conservatoire, and this ordinary grand piano within the greenhouse forest is one of them. Professeur Phi, Professor Fairy in French. Please wake up Professeur Phi. The students said as they tried to wake up their professor who was sleeping under a tree. Yawning as he woke up, it's Professor Xing's students, who found me this time, said He Shue, who just woke up from his slumber. With those excited three students surrounding him holding the same piano piece in their hands, they were looking at He Shue with a sparkling gaze. It is not hard to understand that this class wanted this fairy professor to play that piece for them. Professor, please play this piece, the students said as they showed He Shue the piano piece titled La Campanella, by Liszt. Liszt's La Campanella, Italian for The Little Bell. The etude is famous for being one of the most difficult pieces ever written for piano. It is played at a brisk allegretto tempo and features right-hand jumps between intervals larger than 1 octave, sometimes stretching for 2 whole octaves within the time of 16 notes. Little time is provided for the pianist to move the hand, forcing the pianist to avoid tension within the muscles. Well, according to the internet. Moving his eyes to the etude's title, you want to hear The Little Bell, by Liszt. Is your professor not able to play that piece? Asked He Shue. No, Professor Xing said that it is a bit difficult for him to play this piece and said to look for Professor Phi for guidance. That's right. Professor Xing even said that Professor Phi must be in the greenhouse forest, which is why we came here. Professor Phi, seeing the pleading, sparkling gazes of the students who found him, okay, I'll play it for you, but are you sure that it's Professor Xing who said that I am here and not your Professor Roy, Professor King in French? This is Lenya. EXE, check the area if there are changes made. Please be careful. The glass ceiling above the grand piano has few man-made cracks on it. The range of accidents will be a meter around the grand piano. After hearing what his system had said, He Shue already knew who the culprit was. He couldn't help but smile in mischief, though the depths of his eyes were cold. Thinking of it, that person is truly obsessed with his husband. Whispering, since you love my husband so much, then I can only make him hate you as much. He Shue stood up as he prepared to walk towards the piano. Stay under the trees for shade and listen carefully, all right? Said He Shue to the children. Yes, Professor. The 3 students stayed under the tree where the shade is largest. It was at least 2 meters away from the piano at the center. Wearing a simple long white sleeve which is even larger than his body size, it can be said that the clothes were not for him but something that will fit with Wan Lenya's body size. Correct. He is wearing Lenya's clothes which he took from their shared wardrobe while in a state of half asleep this morning. Paired with a fit black pants. Made He Shue look so casual, but so adorable. The students who saw his clothes recognized who originally wore such clothes. Hey, isn't that sleeve something Professor Roy used to wear before? Why is Professor Fee wearing it? SHSS quiet. It's none of our business who wears which clothes. It's not like you need to be surprised or anything. Rumors say that Professor Fee used to be Professor Roy's former wife. Really? Who did you hear it from? I heard it from Professor Yu's class. My brother attends his class. My brother said the couple divorced once. This is because of Professor Roy's family. After that Professor Fee decided to leave the country without informing everyone, even Professor Roy. Only when Professor Yu accidentally bumps into Professor Fee in France and invites him to return to the conservatoire that they've met once again. Isn't their love story bittersweet? I heard that currently Professor Roy is courting Professor Fee once again. So sweet, but didn't they say that Professor Roy is going out with Professor Xing? True, I heard that from Professor Xing as well. Is that even true? Ignoring his students murmuring, I'm going to start now. Listen. He Shui said while seated in front of the grand piano started playing La Campanella. As the notes were pressed, the students were watching in awe as they couldn't even see their professor's finger pressing around the piano keys. If not for the fact they could hear the piano sounds, they wouldn't believe that their professor is touching the piano. They watch his fingers fly over the piano keys like feathers fluttering then disappearing. La Campanella, this is one of the difficult piano pieces in the world. Because most pianists will get tired in the middle of playing, only a few could complete this piece, and before them their professor is playing it for them with ease. This fairy is really not human. They were entranced with the music until they heard something broken. Crash. It was the sound of glass breaking. At that moment He Shui couldn't help, but stopped playing. Looking for the source of the sounds, he then looked above him and saw glass shards falling on him. Seeing this, a small secretive smile full of mischief was found on the corner of his lips, which instantly disappears as he looks at the students with him in the area. Stay back! Shouted He Shui. Within his mind He Shui spoke to his system, EXE, make sure this body remains alive. Understood, host. The three students who wanted to reach out to him saw glass shards and debris falling from above their professor, who shouted for them to stay away. Few glass shards flew towards them, but their injuries were just minor cuts while their professor was buried under stone debris and glasses in front of them. He is barely alive as he took cover under the piano. Professor Fee. Chapter 35. 2.8 Third Small Star. Silly husband, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Wuhan Conservatoire had fallen into chaos. There are two reasons. First, a famed professor had gotten buried under one of the greenhouse's roof, which collapsed during his lessons. And second, the Demon King had gone mad. This accident caused disorder in the whole conservatoire. They would have never expected that the ceiling of one of the greenhouses would suddenly just collapse like that, almost burying one of their professors alive. Moreover, the professor involved in the accident was not just someone. It was He Shui, the king of music industry, Wan Lenya's former wife. It is no wonder that the owner had gone mad from anger when he heard that his lover got hurt. After all, the conservatoire is his own territory. If he couldn't even protect his own lover within his own land, which is absurd. When someone told Wan Lenya the news of his former wife getting involved in that accident, the one who informed him was almost killed by him. The messenger was almost choked to death by Wan Lenya, who heard the news. If not for Yu Wuya, who successfully calmed his friend down, that the messenger would have suffocated on the spot. Arriving at the hospital. Entering one of the VIP rooms under He Shui's name. Wan Lenya saw He Shui covered in white bandages once again, making him remember the events that happened 3 years ago. But the scene before him is worse than before. 3 years ago, he can only see his wife's finger covered in white, but this time he can see through his slightly opened hospital robes. Within those robes are almost countless of white bandages layered on that thin body. Even with the bandage it couldn't even completely stop the bleeding, tainting the white cloth with hints of crimson. Observing He Shui closely from head to toe, Wan Lenya even saw his former wife's head was covered with the same white thing and his now ashen face covered in small glass scratches, making his face look miserable. Seeing this state of He Shui made Wan Lenya's heart full of remorse and regret. Ah! He came too late again. His love was harmed, even thought he is supposed to be under his protection. Wan Lenya felt that everything he had in this moment is so useless. As if noticing that someone entered his room, He Shui's celestial blue irises wandered towards the door to see who came for him. When it meets with Lenya's silver orbs, those azure eyes were blank as if it lost his soul. There is no emotions, no feelings, even a single hint of life in it was not found. As if this person is already dead in the world. But when this person recognized that it was Wan Lenya who came, a few bits of life glinted within those deep sea-colored orb. His reaction is akin to those people who was suddenly given a will to live, yet for some reason it only took a second for it to be extinguished. No one knew what this lonely man had recalled. Wan Lenya could only watch as He Shui lowered his head instantly, as if it's one of his defensive measures. With his slight trembling and hoarse voice, He Shui spoke. "Why are you here?" asked as he lowered his gaze, not wishing to see Wan Lenya's figure. Seeing his wife's hesitation and fragility, Wan Lenya seriously wished that it was him who suffered in his instead. This reaction from his former wife is something he caused himself. He knew the reason why his wife never called him to inform about his situation despite of him knowing his phone number. Regardless of waking up in the hospital with nothing is wrong with his memories. This is something he sowed himself. A result that was made because of his wrong choices. Once he recalled what happened 3 years ago, when his wife had gone missing and was said to be involved in some incident, only made Wan Lenya clearly realize that he is a scum. That familiar event of getting hospitalized is nothing new. Few years ago, He Shui, who is still named as Wu Shui at that time and was his wife on paper, had been brought to the hospital after being rescued from his kidnapping event. According to the police, he got accidentally involved in that case and was taken as well. Wu Shui had gone missing for 3 days. He first disappeared after getting a usual checkup in his accustomed hospital. The witness in that moment said that he was grabbed together with another young man waiting at the hospital entrance. They were forcefully pushed in a black van and was taken away. At that time Wan Lenya didn't know what happened as he was out of country attending an international concours in France. He is their country's representative at that time. When he returned in the country on the 3rd day of Wu Shui's missing event, Lenya even received countless phone calls from Wu Shui at that time, but thinking that it was nothing important, Lenya never answered it even once. He would never expected that those phone calls were his wife's cry for help. Reminiscing this shitty event made him remember how much of an asshole he is. Wan Lenya is a good for nothing in his former wife's eyes that he never even once thought of wasting his time to call him this time just to ask him to help him. The trauma he caused 3 years ago was deeply buried in Shui's heart. Even though they've gotten a bit closer in this few months, what he had already done cannot be undone. It was a fact that he had a case of negligence of protecting He Shui before, and this time he failed once again. He is an utter failure. Avoiding to meet Lenya's eyes, He Shui continues to speak his prepared lines. I cannot continue teaching with these injuries. I will have He Yu prepare my dismissal procedure, then I. He Shui couldn't complete what he wanted to say. Wan Lenya suddenly pulled him into a tight hug. The hug was overwhelming that it made Shui unable to continue speaking. The pain from his injuries had spread in his body. This is because the man had embraced him with uncontrolled strength. He could already imagine his wounds reopening. Well, this will allow Lenya to feel even sorry for him. He doesn't mind deepening his feeling of distress towards me. A hoarse but gentle voice with hints of tenderness thought the scolding tone reached his ears. Don't say that. Please don't say anything anymore. I'm sorry. Sorry, I let you get hurt again. I'm sorry. Please don't leave me again, Shui," said Wan Lenya as he slightly tightens his arms around with Shui. He Shui could even feel this man slightly trembling. Wan Lenya's breathing tickles his neck as the man leans his head on the top of Shui's shoulder. He Shui could feel the warm droplets falling on his neck. It is very evident that this person in front of him was so frightened that even his tears fell uncontrollably upon seeing him his state. This isn't the first time he had seen his husband cry. During their first lifetime his husband cried the same way when he got kidnapped by a rival company once. He had gone missing for one whole day while the kidnappers contacted his husband as they asked for a ransom. His husband received numerous threatening messages saying that once his husband failed to give them what they wanted, something terrible would happen to him, his wife. Though in the end, he was rescued personally by his husband before the day even ended. After that, his husband, as if he had gone crazy, had demolished that rival company, who is the mastermind of the kidnapping. Startling even him after watching the footage his system had secretly recorded. Well, it was his orders to have the whole event recorded for a solid proof, thought it wasn't used in the end as his husband took a different approach to punish those men. The video of cruelty and inhumanity. Seeing how much his husband tortured those humans. Those people were treated even worse than pigs in the slaughterhouses. Wang Tian had starved them for a week. Without even being given anything to eat or drink. These people could only slowly eat their nails to their fingers and drink their own piss, flesh and blood, to live. There are some who croak faster than cockroaches. What can you expected? Once the whole week had passed, Wang Tian had offered them a single glass of water at the state where starvation is already beyond their control. His husband let them fight for that single glass of water. Fight to death. Only for the winner to end up eating the flesh of his own people to survive and be killed slowly with his limbs getting cut one at a time. His husband is a demon through and through, only in front of him that he becomes human. Only then that he understood how much this man loves him. His deep feeling was enough to become an obsession. This obsession allowed the man to follow him even in this second world. This man is a cruel and obsessive like a demon king who wouldn't let him escape even if he ran away to the other worlds. He knows that this man will follow him even in hell. After experiencing the care and love he is giving him, He Shui finally decided to forgive him. Slightly struggling because he is in pain, He Shui continues to fidget in his man's embrace. Wan Lenya, who thought his wife wanted to leave him, tightens his arms around him, not allowing the latter to escape his embrace. He hugs him as if he wanted to embed Shui in his own body so that no one else would be able to take him away from him. His possessive side isn't willing to let go of his love. Wan Lenya was so deep in his thoughts that he had forgotten to control the strength of his arms. Only until he felt a pain on his neck which instantly brought him back to reality, that made him sober. It seems that his wife had bitten him out of anger. Lenya hissed in pain and lessened the strength of his hug, but still doesn't intend to let go of his wife, keeping his arms around his waist. Hiss. Wife. When he looks down at his wife's small figure, Wan Lenya saw Shui glaring at him with scolding eyes but not of hatred. He felt relief, but at the same time unease when he saw He Shui giving him that reprimanding look as if he really did something to wrong him. Glaring at his husband, "Do you not see me injured? I'm already in pain. Why do you hug me with that much strength? Do you want to kill me?" Scolding He Shui. Hearing his wife's accusation, Wan Lenya stutters in his reply, "Noi." Only when he saw the blood on his wife's white bandages spreading more than usual that he panicked and called for a doctor in a hurry. "Doctor. Doctor, please come over. Wife. My wife is bleeding." Wan Lenya shouted in the hallway, causing commotion and misunderstanding within the hospital. His shouts made others in the hospital think that this husband's wife was bleeding and was about to give birth. Ha ha ha! Hearing his husband's usual silliness, He Shui couldn't help but laughed at Lenya. Chapter 36. 2.9 Small Star, Plans. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hospital. He Shui's designated room. After the doctor had Shui's bandages changed, this old medical practitioner scolded Wan Lenya for overreacting and shouting within the hospital premises. Seating quietly on his bed, He Shui, who was watching silently, couldn't help but giggle as he saw his husband get reprimanded like a child until his head was lowered in embarrassment and remorse. Few moments after the doctor left, Wan Lenya finally noticed the soft giggles coming from his wife, surprising him. He looked at He Shui with a stunned expression, making his wife laugh at him aloud this time. Ha ha ha. Laughing, what's with that ridiculous face you are making? You look silly, hubby, said He Shui, who even took a picture of his shocked husband with his phone. His wounds aren't hurting anymore as he was given painkillers for it. In dazed, hubby, responded by the stunned Wan Lenya. Smiling evilly at his husband, I'll give you a task. If you complete this, then I'll give you a reward, hu.b.by, said He Shui. Knowing that he isn't hearing things and that his wife is giving him a second chance. Wan Lenya felt incredibly pleased. What task? What reward? He asked. Your task is that you must capture the one who wanted to kill me. Make sure he will be alive after torturing him half dead. Get him imprisoned for life and make his life inside the prison even worse than hell, not allowing him to die nor letting him want to live. Your time limit is only a month. If you failed, you would never see me ever again in this life, replied He Shui with an evil smile. Hearing his wife's answer, Wan Lenya's face turned dark when he heard the consequences of failure, but his focus is still on the prize he would get. How about my reward? He asked. With an alluring smile on his face, he waves his hands at Wan Lenya, asking him to get closer. When there's only an arm distance away between, He Shui pulled Wan Lenya over by his tie and gave him fleeting kisses on the corner of his cold lips, startling the latter with his dumbfounded face. When He Shui saw his husband's astonished but silly expression, he couldn't stop himself from teasing Lenya. The man was teased badly that his face turned red in provocation, excitement, and anger. In his mind, thoughts like why his wife is teasing him this much and not even giving him a proper kiss echoed. Unable to bear his wife teasing, Wan Lenya grabbed the back of his wife's head and pulled him over for a proper kiss. As if he were hungry for this man's kiss, Wan Lenya couldn't help but bite He Shui's lips in anger and deprivation. He didn't stop until their mouths were filled with the taste of blood. Seeing his husband's irritation, Shui knew he had teased him quite too much, that he even incurred his husband's possessiveness. This time he didn't struggle and let his husband kiss him. The feeling of someone wanting to eat him alive was something he experienced for the first time. Their tongue entangles as if wanting to suck out the soul in their bodies. Their deep kiss lasted for a few minutes, and it was only when his husband noticed his lack of air that let go of him. Seeing his wife's misty eyes, that Lenya's couldn't help but clicked his tongue. Tsk** licking the stretched silver line connecting his lips to his wife. He looked at his wife's seductive state with his cold eyes filled with lust, but couldn't do anything because of his wife's body's current state. With an unexplainable yearning in his eyes, he controlled himself not to lose control and gently pulled his wife to his embrace, wrapping his arms around his waist in a very possessive manner, but extremely gentle, as if protecting something very precious. Smelling his wife's sweet minty scent as he rests his head on his shoulder, left him a relaxing feeling, as if he got back something important to him. He is not even wanting to let go even for a second. So, your reward is that I will allow you to marry me for the last time. Moreover, since I'm of royal descent, you must convince my grandma dowager and uncle emperor in France. It will not be easy, but do you accept, Wan Lenya? Asked He Shui with a smile as he held Lenya's hand with a bit hesitation. Only for the latter to capture his hand and intertwine their 10 fingers as if locking in their fates. Gently squishing his wife's soft hands and fingers, a smile appeared on Lenya's face. A month later I'll go back with you to France to propose and ask Grandma Dowager and Uncle Emperor for permission. After that let's go prepare our wedding and announce our engagement. Where would you like to go for a honeymoon, wifey? asked Wan Lenya while giving his wife's white neck some ticklish kisses. Giving out a soft moan, "Hn. Want to tour the world? Ah, together," replied He Shui, who is being teased by his husband's tickling kisses on his neck and nape, sometimes sucking, leaving some traces of ownership on his neck. The lovers stayed by each other's side day by day. It lasted for a whole week until He Shui got pissed that his sticky husband was even ignoring his work in the conservatoire. He had kicked him out of the hospital for the sake of the students. One evening, Wan Lenya called for his friend Yu Wuya and his wife, He Yu. He wanted to ask He Yu to look after his wife while he do his work. It not that Wan Lenya didn't leave bodyguards to protect his wife, it just that it is better if there is someone from his wife's side to stay by Shui while he is away. The four had a conversation that night. Their conservation topic is how they should capture Xing Ran and gather enough evidence for it. The conversation ended up with one keeping a silent stance, He Yu, in disagreement, Wan Lenya, in agreement, He Shui, and in disbelief, Yu Wuya. With a scowling face, "I do not agree," Wan Lenya said with a serious tone of voice. Smiling, "This is the fastest way. You can only agree. Unless you do not wish to marry me," hubby, teasingly said He Shui. With frown added between his brows, "Marrying you is a must, but I still don't agree to this plan," replied Wan Lenya. Disbelieving Yu Wuya, I don't like my role. So, can I disagree? He proposed only to receive countless of glares from his wife and friends. The contents of their plan. He Shui. Bait. He wanted Xing Ran to attempt murder and create opportunities for the latter to take his life. Wan Lenya. Reinforcement. He would prepare everything from surveillance to manpower to make sure that the plan will be a success. He Yu. Supporting character. He will act in a skit with He Shui and give Xing Ran the opportunity to get close to He Shui. Yu Wuya. Seducer. He will use his charms to make sure Xing Ran will be tempted to visit He Shui and plan for his murder. Note: this plan is thought all by He Shui. Which is why Wan Lenya isn't agreeing, because he is putting his life and body in danger. Yu Wuya's wife, He Yu, gave his husband a cold smile after hearing his complaints. "My dear, this wife has already given permission. Moreover, this is a request from Prince, you cannot not agree," rebuked He Yu. Complained, "Why don't you get Lenya to do it? If it's him, that slut will agree no matter what Lenya says to him," retorted Yu Wuya. Giving Yu Wuya an amused but totally fake smile, "Do you want to die, Wuya?" asked by the smiling evil fairy He Shui. His voice is totally icy despite of the captivating expression on his face. Gulps. Yu Wuya can only tremble when he sees his wife's cold smile and his friend's dangerous smile. He knew that even though they are both smiling, what's behind that smile is nothing but threats on his life. He could only move his complaints to the other person who is less scary than his own wife and best friend. But what he received from the latter is an even scarier expression. Looking at Wuya like a dead man, "Do I have to prepare your coffin?" "Wuya," said Wan Lenya with a cold voice. "I'm not touching nor looking at that damn thing," said Lenya with disgust filling his silvery eyes. The bullied Yu Wuya can only sit at the corner of the room to draw a circle on the ground while growing mushrooms at the same time, as his authority among the group is the lowest. Wan Lenya's decision doesn't change even when his wife tries to console him over it. He is really not willing to put He Shui in danger for the third time. He is afraid that he might fail to protect him again. Wan Lenya declared. "It's dangerous. I will never agree." In the end, to make his husband agree, He Shui could only whisper something to his husband's ears and force him to compromise. Hearing what his wife had secretly promised him, that his dark expression slowly smoothens. With a blooming smile on Lenya's face, "Good thought, I will have to make sure you will not be harmed." "I will reluctantly agree. Wuya, do your best." Wan Lenya even tried his best to stop himself from laughing in contentment, but they could still see his lips twitching as if he wanted to smile. Staring at him, the others thought he had lost a few screws in his head. Beside him He Shui just grinned as his plan was successfully approved. All they just need to do is schedule when they will do it. Meanwhile the dense and innocent little Wuya moved close to his wife and whispered. "Honey, what do you think Shui said to that fool?" asked Wuya to his beloved wife. Looking at his husband like an idiot, a simple reward like. Hey Yu whispered something to his husband, making Wuya smile like an idiot, unlike Lenya who controlled his expressions well. Consoled in the same way as Lenya. This little fool who was just wailing in his dismay few minutes ago is completely gone. Wuya's attitude took a whole 180-degree rotation and changed his mind as fast as he blinked his eyes. Giggling with silliness, he honey, I shall do my best," said Wuya. Wan Lenya, who saw Wuya's silly expression, looked at him with one thought: this idiot is under the control of his wife. Not even noticing that their wives beside them were looking at both their husbands with a can't-be-helped expression on their faces. They know how easy it is for them to control these two lustful beasts with few promises on bed matters. Chapter 37 2.10 Third Small Star, How to Catch a Scheming Black Lotus. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After their plan was finalized, Wan Lenya left numerous bodyguards and shadow guards to protect his wife. This time he is not willing to let his wife fall into any kind of danger. Even a scratch will not be forgiven this time. These subordinates knew that their master was serious this time, as he forbade anyone aside from the two close friends to approach He Shui. Only their boss, Yu Wuya, and the lawyer named He Yu are allowed to enter the room of Prince He. Among them He Yu was given a task to stay in the room at all times, as he need to care for their boss's wife's well-being. Even the food will be inspected before eaten if bought outside. Groceries will only be accepted if the boss or He Yu brought it personally. A small kitchen was prepared next door upon their boss's request. The doctors that look after Prince He are those that work directly under him and his wife only. These actions of his shows how much possessiveness and love he has for his wife, and now everyone knows that He Shui is this demon king's only reverse scale. Someone they had to treat more important than their own parents or ancestors. Wan Lenya had made the investigations in public, but left more prying eyes to observe every movement Xing Ran. After all, this person has been their initial suspect for the accident 3 years ago and this latest one. His obsession towards the king of music, Wan Lenya, is well known as well. He is a fanatic of Lenya. Everyone in the music industry and in conservatoire knew his obsessive one-sided love towards the king, but the king only loved one person. Failing to kill He Shui the second time made him reach the final straw of his emotional constraints. Somewhere in the conservatoire. His private living space. With a dark room, a lot of things were scattered on the floor, either broken or fragmented. Countless of glass shards spreads on the ground. The lights in the whole place was turned off as if no one was living in it. In the receiving area, Xing Ran was seating on the couch while clutching on his hair like a crazy person. Why? Why? Just why can't you just die? The king is mine. He can only be mine. Since those useless fools couldn't do it, I will just have to kill you with my own hands. He Shui. You whore. Talking to himself in the midst of his madness, Xing Ran. Unable to bear it anymore, he decided to do it with his own hands, but unlike those with high authority, ordinary people didn't know how heavy the security the king made around his queen. Just with the queen's original lineage, a heavy security is always been a must. After all, He Shui is a crown prince and full-blood royalty of both Wu and He. 3 weeks had passed since then. Morning in the conservatoire. Xing Ran looked for Yu Wuya as he couldn't find Wan Lenya. Obviously Wan Lenya made sure to never bump on him, in case he forgot to hold back his anger and killed this bitch on the spot. Then wouldn't his wife's plan be useless by then? As they had expected, Xing Ran requested to visit He Shui. What? You want to meet Shui? No, not allowed, said Wu Ya. Acting like a little white lotus, I only want to thank Professor Fee. After all, he got hurt protecting my students. Please. Professor Yu. You must let me meet Professor Fee to show my gratitude. I cannot find the Brother Wan to ask permission. Professor Yu is my last chance. Please, said Xing Ran with a coquettish voice. Acting reluctant, but if I bring you with me and Lenya knows, I will get killed, said Wu Ya, showing his hesitation on his face. I promise. I will explain to Brother Wan properly. Please, Professor Yu, replied Xing Ran with a bright smile on his face. Then Xing Ran lowered his head, bowed down to his waist to show his determination, but the real reason for this action is to not allow Wu Ya to see his annoyed expression hidden behind his white lotus fa. Wu Ya even looked at him with a disgusted expression, but the latter couldn't see it because his head is down. Obviously these two hated the guts of one another. Sighing as if he accepted, sigh fine, replied Wu Ya, while Xing Ran showed happiness that he agreed. That afternoon, Wu Ya brought Xing Ran to the hospital where He Shui currently resides. When they arrived on the floor where Shui's room is located, the guard standing at the hall a few meters away from Shui's room inspected them before allowing them to pass the room where Shui was admitted. Upon their arrival in the room, they only see He Shui asleep on his bed. Seated beside the bed is a man wearing a formal suit while reading a magazine. It was He Yu. A sweet smile appeared on Wu Ya's face as soon as he saw his wife, but he didn't forget to say his lines. Honey, this is Professor Xing I told you on the phone. He said he wanted to meet Shui. Professor Xing, this is my wife and Shui's legal lawyer, he introduced. The two shook hands upon finishing the introductions while He Yu pinched his husband in disagreement of him bringing someone with him. This was within his script. With a cold smile on his face, He Yu speaks. Why did you bring someone here without the king's permission? My dear, do you want to die? Rebuking Wu Ya while pulling his ears. With his ears pulled for real, ow. Ow. Honey, gently my ears, complained Wu Ya. Not forgetting his white lotus fa. Xing Ran immediately pleads for you, Wu Ya. Please don't get angry at Professor Yu. It was my request for him to bring me here. I wanted to give my thanks to Professor Fee for saving my students, explained Xing Ran in his white lotus fa. He Yu just looked at him with a sharp gaze, though there's a judging smile on his face. There is no need to explain. You are already here anyway. But I don't think you can talk to the professor. The medicine given to him induces sleep, so the professor will be asleep for a few hours, he said, while there's a hint of taunting on his tone. Keeping a kind smile on his face, I can wait. I mean, since I'm already here, let me wait for the professor to wake up, replied Xing Ran. As you wish, but please observe silence. My prince's husband will be back soon. You can explain to him yourself why you are here, said He Yu as he went back to reading. Making sure that the kind smile on his face doesn't fade, Xing Ran could only secretly strengthen his grip hidden within his sleeves to control his anger and hatred for He Yu. His mind is clouded with madness as his thoughts were in disarray. This bastard calls his beloved that whore's husband. They are divorce. Divorce. I want to pull out this slut's tongue. Xing Ran's thoughts behind his angelic smile. Wu Ya sat beside his wife wanting to ask forgiveness while tugging his sleeves like a bullied puppy, but He Yu ignored him. Like a kicked puppy he is, Wu Ya sits quietly beside his wife. In the end, He Yu couldn't bear it and dragged his annoying husband outside the room to scold him. The time was calculated properly as planned before the couple acted out and pretended to take their leave to have a private talk. The moment the couple left the room, the kind smile on Xing Ran's face disappeared completely. The flower bouquet on his lap was destroyed the moment he took something hidden inside. The bouquet wasn't checked as it was made so expensively beautiful, making the other people hesitate in touching it. Though it was according to the plan that the guards turned a blinded eye at such a huge bouquet. Normally such kinds of things wouldn't pass through those guards' observing eyes. A regular-size knife made of glass was hidden inside the huge bouquet. As metal detectors were stationed in the hallway where the VIP rooms are located, a glass was able to successfully pass through the metal detector. Even so, the guards had received orders to turn a blind eye on things that obviously looked strange, like the huge bouquet. Xing Ran stood up, even stepping on the bouquet he threw on the floor. He had this smile of madness imprinted on his face while his eyes were filled with malice. Walking slowly towards the sleeping He Shui on the bed, Xing Ran held the glass knife on his right hand. With a crazy smile on his face, Xing Ran muttered, "I failed killing you once, but succeeded in making Lenya divorce you. So, I thought that the king could finally become mine, but when you disappeared, Lenya changed like a different person. He is a lot colder than before and treated others like they are not human except for a few who he considered friends. His former attraction on me disappeared completely. I didn't give up and tried all means, even seduction, to get his eyes back on me, but he even treated me worse than beggars. He didn't let me call his name nor let me touch him. Even entering his line of sight disgusted him like I am some kind of bug dirtying his eyes. That was your fault. No. It can only be your fault. Before I could even take back his gaze, you just have to return. You damn bitch. He is mine. 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 He can only be mine, but he only has you in his eyes, in his heart. Since that's the case, then you can only die. Die, Wu Shui." Xing Ran raised the knife intending to stab He Shui through his heart, wanting to take his life with one stroke. Only for someone to grab his wrist, twisting it on a weird angle without any hint of hesitation and breaking his wrist bones mercilessly. "Aha!" He screamed in pain, only for the latter to kick him on his stomach without any reluctance. Xing Ran flew back and hit the wall. He fell on the floor like a broken doll, coughing blood from the internal injuries of his ribs broken. Xing Ran had a hard time breathing after coughing blood. His head also starts to bleed. But he didn't forget his goal. Seeing someone save He Shui, Xing Ran knew that he was trapped. Since he will be caught anyway, he wanted to drag down He Shui with him by taking his life no matter what. Looking around him to see where his knife fell, his line of sight suddenly starts to waver from the lack of blood. What he didn't know is that his knife was long confiscated, and the culprit is man who kicked him. This man had hit him without holding back, even making sure his few ribs broke with one hit. While panting as if he was out of breath, Xing Ran tried to assess his current situation clearly, but his state isn't good. He didn't even heard the sound of the door opening and much less recognized those familiar voices. Wow, no hesitation at all. Did you broke his ribs with that kick of yours? It was Yu Wea's voice. He deserves it. This time He Yu spoke. After taking back the control on his breathing, Xing Ran slowly moves, trying to stand up as he looks at the people inside the crowded room, but his sight is still slightly blurry and was unable to distinguish the appearance of the people. As for the main culprit of kicking Xing Ran, this man ignores the three's presence altogether. He put the knife he picked up inside the side closet and sat on the bed where He Shui is. With a gentle tone, the man asked with his voice filled with worry, "Are you hurt, Shui?" asked Lenya. The moment Xing Ran heard that familiar voice, he ignored the pain in his body just to look at the owner of the voice. He was shocked to see that the one who kicked him and broke his wrist without any hints of humanity is none other than the person he loves the most. He watches as Lenya gently pulls Shui in his embrace as if he was the most precious being in the world. Jealousy and envy stabbed his heart. Just the fact that Wan Lenya ignored his existence for He Shui is enough to break his heart. After all, he loves the man named Wan Lenya with all his heart, that his tears fall unconsciously. Seeing the despair in Xing Ran's eyes, He Shui couldn't help but laugh at him. surprising only Xing Ran, who didn't know He Xue's evil personality. Ha ha ha! Seeing the sudden changes in He Xue's personality made Xing Ran speechless. Hey, you learned about it 3 years ago while Yu witnessed it in France a few years ago. On the other hand, Wan Lenya's expression didn't change at all. He doesn't care even if He Xue is an evil person. After all, he loves him wholly for who he is, no matter if he is a little devil or a little fairy. He loves him with his everything. Only Xing Ran was stunned. Ha ha ha! You look like a rag dog. Taunted He Xie, his voice shows hints of delight. Laughing at Xing Ran, He Xue moves like he is uninjured. After all, his body was already almost healed after staying in the hospital for a month. He Xue straddled at Lenya's lap, who unconsciously put his arms around his waist to let the latter sit comfortably on his lap. Not even forgetting to pull the blanket to cover Xue's back and avoid him getting cold. He Xue wrapped his hands around Lenya's waist, removing the few spaces between him. He pasted himself on Lenya's body without any embarrassment. Then glanced at the glaring Xing Ran not far from them, giving him a mischievous smile. His eyes showed mirth and laughter from within. Obviously, He Xue is enjoying making Xing Ran lose his mind in envy and jealousy. There's even a proud smile imprinted on his face as he looked down on Xing Ran. Meanwhile, Wan Lenya tightened his arm around that slender waist of his wife, not letting him escape. With his eyes showing his full of love and tenderness, he looked at the man within his arms. Wan Lenya smiled unconsciously. His smile is so beautiful, like an eternal ice melting, giving one a spring coming feeling. This time not only Xing Ran was rendered speechless, even Yu was stunned and dazed. Wan Lenya rarely smiles, but seeing such a blooming expression on this cold-hearted man's face would astonish people who knew how well what kind of personality he possessed. Wu, am I seeing things? Said the stunned Wuya upon seeing his deadpan-faced friend smile. As if used to this kind of Lenya, Xue just smirks and gives this silly man a sweet kiss before once again returning his gaze to his toy in this world. Smiling proudly at Xing Ran, Lenya is yours. Please. Dream only when you're asleep. The Lenya whom you called yours, no longer exist. The moment I, He Xue, opened my eyes. This Lenya here has always been mine. He can only become mine and mine only. This Lenya is my husband, so he can never be yours, little one. He Xue's tone might be playful, that even his words sound taunting to the other ears, but to Xing Ran's ears the things that entered his mind are different, and was shocked that he was rendered speechless. In days after understanding the hidden meaning within He Xue's words, why you? Are you really that weak, timid, pessimist Wu Xue? Asked Xing Ran while looking at He Xue like he is some kind of a devil. Smirking at Xing Ran as he understood what he meant. Looked at the guards who showed themselves together with Wan Lenya, the moment Xing Ran tried to stab him, and gave them a simple command. Drag him over. Commanded He Xue. He Xue gestured to the guards to drag Xing Ran towards him as he had something to say to him. With his arms dangling on his sides, Xing Ran was forced to stand even with his body aching all over. Even when he screamed in immense pain, the cold, icy expression Wan Lenya is giving him never changed. Looking at the smiling He Xue in front of him, unable to move at all, he can only watch the man whisper something in his ears with a playful tone of voice. I'm not the original Wu Xue. You understand, right? Dear little one, I had fun. Chapter 38. 2.113 Small Star, together again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xing Ran was captured as a plan. He Xue, who whispered something. Xing Ran leaned forwards. Annoyed by the closeness of his wife to that dirty thing, Wan Lenya could only pull his wife back to his embrace as he glared at Xing Ran with eyes filled with disgust, disdain, and hatred. In his eyes, this man who tried to kill his most important person thrice doesn't deserve to be called as a human. He is even lower than an insect in his eyes. Wife. Don't get too close. You'll get dirty. Said Lenya as his voice was filled with disdain towards Xing Ran. Hearing what both He Shui and Wan Lenya had said snapped him back to reality. Xing Ran felt horrified when he saw that playful smile on He Shui's face while quailing when he heard those unsympathetic words that came from his beloved man. No, no, no. Listen to me. Lenya. Please listen. That is not Wu Shui. That is not the original Shui. He is not Wu Shui. He is different. That's a devil. A devil. That's not Shui. A devil is possessing the body of Wu Shui. A devil. That's a real devil. Xing Ran started screaming like a lunatic. With a frown on his face and his hands covering his wife's ears, Lenya looked at Xing Ran coldly. Glancing at the guards once, Lenya ordered. Noisy. Drag him to the basement. Break his 2 legs to prevent him from escaping and plug the noisy mouth of his. Ordered Wan Lenya to the guards, who immediately followed his orders and blocked Xing Ran's mouth with a rag and dragged him to the hospital basement after breaking his legs. This hospital was bought by Wan Lenya a few weeks ago, making him the new owner of the whole place. Woa, that guy is really a lunatic. Had he gone mad for real? Said Wu Ya, who saw the whole show from the corner. Meanwhile his wife was silent all the time beside him. You can add the fact that he is a psychopath with obsession tendencies. Prince, what do you want me to do next? Asked He Yu to his master, He Shui. Remove the hand covering his ears, prepare a plane ticket to France by the end of the month and send a message at home. Tell them, I'll be bringing home a husband with me. Replied He Shui, who was once again pulled into a hug by Lenya. Nodded his head in acceptance of his new task. He dragged his own husband out the room. As you wish, Your Highness. After saluting at his master, He Yu decided to give the couple their privacy and grabbed his own husband. My dear, let's go. He Yu said as he pulled his husband out together with him after bidding his farewell to the couple inside. The moment the other married couple left the room, He Shui looked at his beloved's face to face. Wan Lenya might have not changed when He Shui revealed his real personality, but that doesn't change the fact that there is a bit of uneasiness in He Shui's heart. He reached out his hands and held his beloved's face within his palms and stared at those icy silver eyes which looked back at him filled with tenderness and love. With an awkward smile on his face, He Shui spoke to his beloved with hints of hesitation in his voice. I. This lord has a temperamental personality. I love to tease the person I love the most. I have a poisonous tongue and extremely proud by nature. Others may see me evil and be afraid of me. I am not kind or caring like those normal people, but if I choose someone to love, that person will be the only one who I can love for eternity. I might go insane if I lost that love. That person can only love me and only me, or else I will kill whoever you fell in love with, other than I, and slay you if you ever betray me. I never give third chances. Wan Lenya, do you still choose to love this lord, this madman? Said He Shui with a devilish smile on his face. Wan Lenya watched this proud little devil stutter his words as he tried to explain his overwhelming love to him. He watched him explain with seriousness in those celestial blue irises, those phoenix-shaped tempting eyes which sometimes glints with madness and stubbornness. He watches those small cherry-colored lips pout every time he pauses his words, seducing him to eat. He listens as he begged him not to fall in love with other people and never to betray him. This serious but awkward and passionate mad love. Lenya could feel his heart fluttering in excitement and extreme joy. He felt that this lovable little demon thoroughly loved him for his everything. Like how he loves him like he was his world. An ecstatic smile appeared on the corner of his lips as he listened to him speak and questioned him whether he could love this broken him. With a thrilled smile on his face, Wan Lenya didn't give him an answer through his words and showed it through his actions. He felt that doing it this way will be the smartest way and more believable for the little devil to accept. He pulled the little hands on his face as he grabbed the soft black hair of his little devil. even pinched his jaws to force him a slight opening where his tongue pushed past those teeth deep into He Shui's throat with his other hand wrapped around that thin waist that can be held with one arm, pulling him closer to his body as he deepens their kiss. Deep and crazy, he seemed to want to swallow this little devil alive. On the other hand, He Shui's eyes misted, desires and pleasure filling up those sky-tinted orbs with his arms wrapped around that masculine body, even drawing his beloved over towards him, not wanting to let go. His men have always been like this. There are no flowery words or fluttering sweet nothings. All his oaths and promises were shown through his actions. The moment this person pulled him in such an impatient deep kiss, he knew this man had given him an answer. Only then he let himself fall in that warmth like he had in their first lifetime. He couldn't even control his own breathing and forgot it in the end. Only when Lenya noticed that his love was losing his breath and about to faint that he reluctantly stopped. Despite everything, a month would not be enough to completely heal his almost half-dead vessel to normality. It is normal that his body is currently weaker than an average person. By the time their kiss ended, Shui, who was about to faint, snuggled closer within his husband's embrace, seeking his warmth as he was afraid of losing him again. Only at this time He Shui completely let go of his distress when he lose him in their first world. Tears just fell from those closed eyes while those pair of thin, soft arms were hugging him tightly, like this man was his last straw of life. Finally. I found you. Shui muttered before allowing himself to fall into that darkness as he lost consciousness. When he was about to fall, Wan Lenya caught him back to his embrace, not even letting him go as they laid on the bed together. With his silvery eyes blackening to darkness, gently caressing his beloved's tears away. His obsidian eyes were filled with obsession, passionate love, and tenderness. Muttering as he stares at Shui, "It is me who found you. My beloved." Lenya, who is not Lenya, whispered as he let himself fall to the darkness, joining his love to the land of dreams. Chapter 39. 2.123 Small Star, End, Unknown. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Xing Ran was tortured for 3 days under Wan Lenya's orders before getting thrown to jail. He Shui had sued him for attempted murder twice. After he was judged life imprisonment, Wan Lenya prepared him a gift as he stayed inside the prison. His inmates took turns in torturing him, even becoming their sex slave. The warden ignores his cries of help, and even when he tried to kill himself someone was there to stop him, even plugging his mouth to avoid suicide through biting his tongue. He lives his prison life worse than animals to be slaughtered. At least those animals can only suffer for a bit before dying, while he on the other hand cannot die even if he wanted to. He cannot even starve himself to death and watch the others play with his body. His last straw of hope ended when Wan Lenya visited him once in jail. When the man saw his devastating state, he only spoke a few words. Emotionlessly stares at him like he is not a living thing. Aloof and indifference, like a king looking down upon a sinner who had gone against his decree. With a deep and icy voice, "Still alive?" Wan Lenya asked, imperturbable. Once Xing Ran heard those words, he was struck with realization. He had always hated He Shui for taking this person from him. He thought that his suffering in jail was all He Shui's doing, but only now that he knows that he was wrong. The person who caused him this endless despair, not even allowing him to end his suffering through death, is none other than this man whom he wanted to give his everything to. Tears of skepticism and agonizing pain hit his soul as he stared at Wan Lenya in front of him, separated with only a wall of glass. With his eyes reddening in madness, he questioned that godlike, cold-hearted man in front of him. His scarlet eyes showing insanity, sorrowful love, and doubt. "Why?" asked Xing Ran as he stood up from his seat while banging the glass wall, even forcing the guards to force him back to his seat. He watched as those cold silver eyes looked at him with contempt and fury. He could even feel the cold aura surrounding Wan Lenya as he stared at him like dirt. When he saw those silver eyes turning to pitch black and an evil smirk appeared on Lenya's lips, that he felt a terrifying aura choking him. "You've wanted to harm my baby thrice. Do you really think I am that forgiving? I want you to suffer, despair until the normal ending of your lifespan. Looking through your soul age you will still live a long life of 60 more years. Enjoy the hell this king personally prepared for you alright. Those demon imps I've left will take good care of you. Little thing, when Xing Ran saw Lin Ya's current appearance he couldn't stop himself from trembling that he even peed in his pants. He felt endless despair and horror when he looked into the man's dark eyes in front of him. He felt that he was nothing but a shameless bug in front of this man, and he knew that this man who wore the face of Wan Lingya is not the same person. With a hoarse, shaking voice, both you and that man who wears Wu Shui's face. W.W.Who, A.R, you? Asked Xing Ran with his whole being filled with terrorizing feelings like he is before death itself but wasn't accepted at all. But Wan Lingya's black eyes had long returned to his normal silver eyes and gave him his normal cold face as if what Xing Ran had seen before were all his imagination. I'm Hei's beloved man. He answered before taking his leave, ignoring the screaming lunatic behind him. After that day, Xing Ran had gone crazy, but his punishment continued until after he took his last breath at the age of 84. On the same day, Wan Lingya followed his beloved, He Shui in France to meet his grandma dowager and uncle emperor-in-laws. At first the two didn't accept him welcoming. Only his aunt male empress welcomed him with a smile. It seems that his in-laws knew what happened 5 years ago when they divorced once, and they just couldn't accept him easily when they heard the latest report that he failed to protect He Shui twice already. He had to spend 1 whole month convincing the two doting in-laws before he got them to agree and let He Shui marry him. After learning that He Shui was the only remaining direct royal descendant of the He royal family, Wan Lingya didn't think they would agree to their marriage. Since they are both men. Like Uncle Emperor and Aunt Empress, they will not be able to have a child in the future. Only when his wife explained that he had discovered an artificial birthing method through artificial womb, allowing same-sex couple to have babies through artificial method, that he understood that the He royal lineage will not end with them. After getting the permission of the royal family, Wan Lingya, who left his clan, was adopted to the He royal family, having a king reputation the same as his wife. Well, he just adopted his wife's name instead. While the wedding preparation was made, a live broadcast of their engagement was shown through the world, dubbing them as a royal couple. Their union caused envy and commotion in the world, with both Wu and Wan clan despairing as they were the clan that let these couples go when they were still with them. During the wedding only a few private guests were invited. The He royal family, He Yu, Yu Wuya, and the professors of He Conservatoire, formerly called Wu Wan Conservatoire. Few highlighted musicians and celebrities were invited as well. While only Lady Wan and her husband was invited from Wan clan, as they were still Wan Lingya's birth parents. Once Lady Wan met He Shui after all these years, she couldn't help but beg for the latter's forgiveness. After all, it was her fault that the divorce was settled that time. Thought it was Xing Ran who secretly convinced her to make his son divorce He Shui. He Shui reluctantly forgave her after his husband appeased him a few more times. Their wedding may be a private one, but it was done live and broadcasted around the world. In jail, the warden forced Xing Ran to watch the whole wedding process, making him scream the whole day, like a pig being slaughtered. Only until the warden had enough of his screams and cut off his tongue. After the wedding, the two enjoyed their honeymoon and roamed around the world. Following them were the other pair of married couples, Yu Wuya and He Yu, who acted as their aides the whole time. This royal couple was considered a legend in the music industry. They accumulated almost all the possible awards in the music world. Almost everyone of all ages knows who they were. They retired at the age of 60 and enjoyed a silent and secluded life until the end of their lifespan at the age of 88. The first one to leave this time is Wan Lingya. Afraid that his wife will cry himself to death, he asked him to come with him, which He Shui agreed without hesitation. After He Shui informed the current emperor, their nephew from the He royal family, that he will follow after his husband. When he saw Lingya closed his eyes while his arms were still wrapped around him, the usual sadness from before started to fill his heart once again. Only when he remembered their promise to meet each other again in their next life, that Shui controlled the madness within him. Calming down instantly and prepares to take his leave. Host. He is gone. I know. With his eyes filled with tears he gave his husband's cold lips one last kiss. I will see you again soon. My husband. EXE, let's leave. He Shui ordered before closing his eyes and wrapping his hands around his husband's waist, allowing his system to remove his soul from this star, returning into that lonely galaxy space where he didn't stay that long. As he knows that his beloved will not be in that world.